I know not many people listen to the very beginning of the stream, obviously, but if you're watching this on replay, I do just want to take a brief moment of remembrance for September 11th. Obviously, a tragedy that's happened in America that will never be forgotten. So I'm going to take just a moment here before we start the theme song and get into the show. And thankful for all those that gave their life to try to save those individuals on September 11th. And let's always try to keep them in our thoughts. Moment of silence, and we'll start the show.
Constantly blows. No looking back. Keep your eyes on the prize. Fuel to run with a fire that never dies. The stage is set, digging deep with no regrets. Red and green bars leading the way. Welcome to the angle, no time to delay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the most entertaining, intellectually stimulating financial podcast in the entire world. You're watching the Atomcash Angle, the show that flips the switch and floods the system with straight financial voltage. I'm Adam Cash, and I'm bringing you the firepower your financial life may have been missing. Now, whether you're new to trading or a trading savant, I aim to turn complexity into clarity with a shot of adrenaline. Now, today we have a very interesting day, as we've had all week so far. It's been a very interesting week. We just had CPI release. We're going to talk about it, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We're also going to talk about today, which is Ticker Takedown Thursday. So we're going to go through some hot tickers that you guys may have some interest in. I'll even take some requests from the chat, and we'll go over them. I know a big one that is on a lot of people's radar right now is Open. We're going to talk about that. So ticker symbol OPEN. We'll talk about that. We got a lot of other things to go through, where the Mag 7 is sitting, what is actually happening in all the sectors in the stock market, with the SPY sitting at all-time highs, FOMC, VIXpiration, and OPEX looming. We've got a lot coming up in the next 7 days. As I kind of alluded to yesterday, we are entering into the Thunderdome. Yeah, that's right, the Thunderdome, which is a period of time when I reference a Thunderdome is when we have a lot going on, and at any moment you get a hard move one way or the other, very volatile or typically higher volatile, at least in terms of price action, conditions are on the horizon, at least in my opinion. We're going to talk more about that on today's show. So before we get too deep in the weeds, like I like to do with you guys on every single show, we're going to go through today's Catalyst Watch. Now, obviously, we had CPI come in. We'll talk about that briefly, probably right before market open. And CPI came in mostly as expected, a tiny bit hot, came in at 0.4 versus the 0.3 expected for month over month. Year after year, and core and everything else came in as expected. So kind of a nothing burger. You're seeing that reflect here on the market at open here. Again, I'll give my opinions on that momentarily. As it pertains to the rest of the day, really only one other, I guess I could say, a catalyst so far for the day, which I would say your 30-year bond at 1 o'clock. Typically, and I say this before in the program, anytime you have a bond or a note bid or anything like that, the longer term it is, the larger effect it's going to have on the market as a whole. So you're going to want to pay attention during that time, especially if you're trading SPY or some sort of like market equivalent Qs, IWM, whatever. During that time, you tend to get a little bit of volatility depending on how that bond yield comes in. So be mindful of that. And for tomorrow, we'll give you a quick overview on what we got coming down the pike for tomorrow. Got Michigan sentiment, which you guys know is one of my favorite things to trade if I get the opportunity to trade. But that's about it. Actually, pretty quiet end of the week, it looks like here so far. But that can always change. Before we get too in the weeds, I said a little bit right at the beginning. I know no one's really watching, but it's mainly for those who watch on replay. But I did want to at least briefly touch on what happened yesterday. Now, obviously, this isn't a political show. The things I say on this program are basically for your interests and for your portfolio and how you can be a better trader, or at least things to be mindful of. With that being said, I think it is. I think it's important to at least remember two things. I think it's important that you should make an effort to just, in general, find the ability to be a good person when you have the opportunity, whether it's simply holding the door open for someone, or just doing little acts of kindness. That can really go a long way in someone's day. There's enough crap that we all have to deal with every single day, and I'm not trying to bring down the mood or the energy of the show because this is a morning show. I want to keep it lively and energetic, but I think it's really important to at least challenge all of you, my viewers, to do, or at least try to do, one positive thing, because I inherently believe that people are good. We have 7 billion people on this planet, so if we were bad, then there'd be a lot more deaths and tragedies. So I believe that we're all very inherently good, and if we all do a little thing every single day, as minor as it may be, that is one good thing, we can make this place a better place. That, and the other thing I want to touch on real quick, obviously it's 9/11, so all I ask is at some point today, especially if you were around during that time, take a moment of remembrance. It's a very hard time for some Americans. Obviously, a lot of people lost loved ones that day. Thankfully, I'm not one of those people, but, it's something that hits home with a lot of people. So take a moment just to be respectful of that in your own way, however you want to do that. But some things I think are very important that I highlight today for your consideration. Now that we're done with the hard stuff, let's get into the market. Let's get into everything that we got coming down the pike. Good morning, Eddie. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to say hey in the chat. I'll say hey back. Eddie said you're, so you're right back. But yeah, so right now what we saw with CPI in the pre-market is basically what we're leaning towards is stagflation. We're seeing ultimately slower growth, higher unemployment, and higher inflation. Now, theoretically, this would support an environment or a rate cut environment, so it doesn't really go against the narrative that we're going to be seeing here, and that's probably why you're seeing the market not really react, not to mention it kind of came in as expected. But like I said, and I've alluded to, it seems like a 25-point cut is already baked in. So now it's a matter of, will we cut 50? And that's kind of what I was feeling out here, especially with how CPI came in, that we're basically holding this pre-market high, basically this area, right? Even though we wicked higher, came lower. We wicked literally yesterday's high a day, all-time highs, off by a penny, and back tested the old all-time highs down here and came right back up. So we had a big liquidity sweep both ways, and now we're finding some comfort towards the higher end of that. I think this supports the narrative, again, of a 25-point basis cut being expected by the market. So now what we have to worry about is how that expectation will play. If we get a 25-point basis cut, will it be a sell the news event? Or will Powell go a little more aggressive and go towards, or I should say more dovish, not necessarily aggressive, but float towards a 50-point cut? So there's a lot to consider here, especially because we're in this stagflation environment where you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And unfortunately, it's not really a right answer either which way, which is why, as I've said on this program, I'll continue to say, I believe the individuals who are focused more on day trading right now actually have lower risk than swing traders. And when I say swing traders, I mean options exposure. Equity traders are fine. Obviously, you can put a stop in and get in and out after market and whatever. But in general, day traders have a little bit more of an edge right now, which is a weird thing to say, mainly due to the fact that they can resolve to cash at the end of the day every day. So it's a little bit more defensive in terms of a risk profile. So as the market sits right now, I would still define it as cautiously bullish, where we're just going to maintain a slow trend up at least until next Wednesday. Now, we should see some fluctuation, especially at the open here. Obviously, between these two LOIs, that's what we want to watch today. But we should see ultimately a very plotting move to the upside overall, in my opinion, as things stand right now. Now, next week is very important. You've got three big things coming down at around the same time. You've got the FOMC rate decision, which we just alluded to. The following day, you have VIX-piration, where VIX contracts expire. And then you have OPEX, where monthly options contracts expire. So in terms of volatility, and I don't mean volatility in terms of the VIX, I mean volatility in terms of price action, I'm anticipating price action on the overall market to get very high as we lean into the next 5 to 6 trading days. Guys, real quick, before the market opens, I ask you twice a stream. I'm going to ask you once right now. Do me a favor, wherever you are, interact with the stream, say hey in the chat, drop a like, a comment, retweet it, repost it, subscribe, follow, etc. Do whatever you can to help support the stream. I appreciate anything you can. It's not really for me. I don't need it for my ego, but the algorithm likes it. So if you enjoy what you're seeing here, do me a quick favor. Interact with the stream somehow. If you say hey in the chat, I'll say hey back. Or if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Appreciate all of your support. And don't forget, if you haven't already, pop over to the YouTube channel. Once we hit 500 subscribers, we will do a live show every single day. Plus, I put out videos on there, little snippets from this program, and I will be uploading other videos that aren't from this program as individual videos on demand. So if you like that, go check out my YouTube. Check out my YouTube channel where you can get all of that content absolutely for free. All right, we got about 2 minutes or 1 minute and 30 seconds until the market opens. You're seeing Q's basically the same kind of move here as the SPY, basically the exact same thing. You're opening up right around all-time highs. So that all-time high that was made yesterday at 583.77. I'll mark that out for today. And we're just below that, about 50 cents or so. So we should keep an eye on that into the pre-market here. I'm sorry, into the open here. IWM as well, up a little bit, not as much. So we're seeing a little bit more weakness out of our small caps comparative to our big tech. Orca says, good morning, Adam. Good morning, Orca. Hope you're having a fantastic day, my friend. Thanks for popping by. NVIDIA getting a nice push here. Remember I talked about that 180 area, 180, 183.30 specifically. That 183.30 area is a big area on NVIDIA. I also talked about, I believe it was 180. Let's see if my memory is good. 180.63? Damn, 180.66, the SAR on the daily. So that's your daily SAR. You can also see on my chart here, the POC right now, 179.86. So we've got a lot of confluence in terms of resistance right here in the high 179s, low 180s or mid 180s, where if we break over that, you've got a break on the POC of the daily and you've got a break of the SAR on the daily. However, that is a high point of liquidity, especially between 180 and 183.30. For me personally, you guys saw me get into some longs yesterday on NVIDIA. I would be looking for that 183.30 break now, or even a short, anticipating it to reject that 183.30 area. So we'll wait and see. It's not something I want to rush into today because it's in an area of higher liquidity, so I don't really want to touch it. But there could be an opportunity there, so we'll see. All right, markets open. You saw NVIDIA swing and hit 180 right out the gate. SPY's open here at 654.28 right now, up about 0.3% in the market open. Q's up more than that at 0.5%. Back at yesterday's all-time high. Short of that, about 20 cents right now, so we'll see if the bulls can break through that. IWM just went red into the open as well. You would think that IWM would actually be bullish today, supporting the narrative of a rate cut being a sure thing. And as I've told you guys yesterday, we're looking at least, we got another few inches of clearance here. You got until 142.39 before I'm looking at this being, bearish at all. So IWM has actually been also kind of consolidating, backtesting the 8 EMA here on the daily. It should get some level of an upside today because it looks like it's been condensing and ready for a little bit of a push here. With that being said, you're very hot on the weekly. Look at this chart. Very hot on the weekly. The daily MACD is starting to curl down a bit, but you're holding decent momentum there. So it would be interesting to see if we can swing for that higher area, this 142.39. I was anticipating getting a little bit of momentum off of IWM off CPI, and I know CPI was kind of flat or expected, but I was kind of anticipating a little bit more of a reaction here. So we're going to keep an eye on IWM because I think that is where the opportunity could lie today. Obviously, also relying on, obviously the best opportunity right now in terms of just looking at our three markets here. Qs, looking at the NASDAQ, the Russell, and SPY, is looking like Qs are going to be leading the pack at least for right now. So we're going to keep an eye on all three and see how things go into the open here. Negum, good morning, my friend. Thanks for popping by on the show. Hope you're having a great day. Alrighty. Qs so far have not broken that all-time high. If I'm a betting man, looks like they will. SPY technically made a new all-time high by a few shekels here. 654.59 high a day, new all-time high on SPY. Microsoft is around that 500 number. We've talked about that, so we're going to watch that closely as well. VIX coming down a little bit, and VVIX down quite a bit. So I want to see if VVIX can decay a bit more. UVXY pretty low. 180 area obviously being a big point of contention here for NVIDIA. As I said before the open, you're going to want to watch between 180, 330. That's going to be a spot in which I'm expecting higher periods of liquidity. So not a lot of follow through. Really like a supply zone for those of you who use supply and demand zones. That 180 area should act as some level of resistance. Doesn't mean we can't continuously push through it, but it will be met with more selling than buying, in my opinion. And you're seeing that reaction on the tape here. So by the way, if you can't read timer sales, you don't know how to read timer sales, Webull actually makes it pretty easy. When you see white, it's basically in the middle of the bid and the ask. When you see red, so like the light red text or the light green text, that means it's closer to either the bid or the ask. And when you see that bright green line, so see how it's the whole thing lights up bright green, the whole thing lights up bright red, that means it's at the bid or at the ask. So that gives you an idea of how aggressive each side of the tape can be on an individual name. For those of you that want to learn how to read tape, that's how you can learn how to read the tape down here. Or if you're watching along on the program, you could see and get an idea of even if the stock is moving up, if buyers are necessarily supporting it, how aggressive buyers and sellers are. It's pretty important. So figured I'd highlight that because I don't think I've ever talked about that on the program. So at least you guys may want to consider that into your arsenal of trading tools. SPY sitting around yesterday's all-time high, getting a triple wick up here. That's not a good sign. And QQQ just shy underneath that all-time high level as well. IWM getting a little bit of rally off of that opening dump here. I would be leaning short here. However, I don't want to be leaning short on an all-time high break. So it's a good place to establish a short. I mean, as I'm talking about it, the market's going down. It would be a good place to establish a short here. However, if momentum picks up, this can break and obviously squeeze to the upside. So the risk to reward here is not fantastic here as a short, especially with that catalyst being CPI just kind of expected. And as I said in the pre-market, I should lean towards being a cautious bull every single day where we're just going to kind of plod up to the upside very slowly. So I don't necessarily want to go against that unless we get a hard break and then look for that opportunity of a reversal. So I think the prudent thing to do here is be a little bit patient on this open as we see both SPY and QQQ fighting against that all-time high area And IWM not really getting too much momentum here either. Volatility's down, but pretty flat, non-reactionary, and so is the VVIX. So this is all signs for me to take it very easy on the open. You've got Microsoft holding that 500 area. Let's check the daily here. If this holds, this is actually a really solid bull long entry on Microsoft. You could even put a stop in at like 492, like the low of this candle. You probably risk here. Let's do a risk to reward analysis right now on Microsoft. So let's assume we got in at 550. Let's put a stop at, what are those, 492. And all-time high is 554. So let's see what our risk to reward looks like. Oops, I did that backwards. Whoopsie. Entry 550. Profit 55454. There we go. That should be right now. Okay, so as you can see here, a long on Microsoft actually yields you pretty good risk to reward ratio. So if you wanted to long equity on Microsoft here, considering a stop at the low of this candle, which is 492.37, you could actually establish a long on Microsoft here with a 6-to-1 risk to reward ratio, where you're risking about 1.7% downside to about an 11% upside, assuming you get back to all-time high. So obviously you'd be patient. Microsoft's going to be a bit of a snail. And it's definitely not out of the woods. You're under POC here. It's been bearish, but it's trying to curl up here. We're trying to establish some level of bull momentum here to the upside. I believe this one's going to wait until next week before we get any semblance of a move. But this could be one of those times where you could wait even on it. So even if you didn't want to take a stab right now with a tight stop, or if you do, it's up to you. You could probably wait on this one, wait till after FOMC, where you either break above this localized range above like 512 or break beneath the lows here at 492, and you can establish a short or a long from that. You'd obviously be losing a little bit in terms of percentage, in terms of a better entry either way, but you'd have a more surefire hit that you've got either a trend reversal back to the upside or a trend confirmation to the downside. But if your thing's more, you want to take a stab on equity with decent risk to reward, you could do that risking those lows, and you got a nice 6-to-1 return risk to reward setup here on Microsoft if that is more of your cup of tea. So something to consider if you like that idea. But that's all I'm doing, giving you guys ideas. You do whatever you want. I will say I'm interested in a potential day trade on Microsoft, depending how we behave here. Let's go to the 5-minute and look at where we were yesterday. So yesterday, you see a lot of support on Microsoft coming in around this 499-ish area. So that's kind of where I'd look, basically where we're at. See if this 499-ish area can kind of hold here. I might do a quick little day trade here. It's steep though. As you can see, we're just selling here on the 5-minute, so it's not like we're showing any signs of reversal here. But especially with a stock like Microsoft, that's where I'd like to take a stab, where it's a little risky. IWM pushing to the upside here. Meanwhile, the Q's firing down on the 200 MA, and SPY rejecting those highs as well. So it is seeming like we're getting a little bit of selling pressure coming through the market as a whole. I'm still contemplating that long on Microsoft. Don't forget, today's Ticker Takedown Thursday. We're going to go over open. I know a lot of you have interest in that, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit, so make sure you stick around for that. And look at that LOI tap. 814 to the penny, baby. We haven't even talked about it yet, but I've got some pretty good levels you guys are going to want to know about, especially if you're long open, so make sure you stick around for that. All right. I'm really contemplating taking a stab here on Microsoft. Let's see how much. So the 500 calls right now are about 270. At least that was the last fill. This should have pretty good liquidity. We'll wait and see here. 265. Where is my Microsoft? Basically, this is where I'm looking for it to hold. Like 499.10. It is pretty violent though. Here, what I'll do, I'll add the exchange to the watch list, and we'll keep an eye on it together. And then we'll decide from there. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see. I'll put Microsoft at the top. I like it around $2.70 a contract. So I'm going to wait and see if we are defending this area, which this is the first wick here. So I'm interested on this wick, but it could be a very quick move. How are Qs looking? Qs are up against the 200. IWM just pushing. So this was the expected move I wanted to see on IWM. I wanted to see a better move on IWM. And you see the tables turning here, where we saw Qs were actually more green than IWM, and now the roles have reversed. As I anticipated the roles would reverse, that IWM should be getting more of a bullish reaction than tech as a whole. So this falls into the narrative of what I want to see. All right, I'm going to take a stab on these, I think. Please hold. All right. I am long. Here we go. I'm adding some. Adding a few more. All right. I'm long the 500 calls with a 258 average. Microsoft. What's that? 912. 500 calls. 258. You guys will probably get a better fill than me. These are going to be volatile and very spready. As you can see, you got about a 10-cent or so spread. We might wick a little lower, like I said. That's a pretty red candle. But I'm basically looking for yesterday's lows to defend and recover that 4.9. If it gets to the 4.99.10 area and pushes above it, then we should see a continued move to the upside, especially on Microsoft. So looking for a recovery of this general area here, like literally right here where my crosshairs are. Breaking above that gets us over this little alert level I have of 559, and more than likely getting back to like 502 on the day. But it's something I'll be a little patient on. My risk here, looking to risk yesterday's low, 496.74. So we're going to keep risk pretty tight on this one. So it's a little ballsy, especially how this daily setup. But you even saw yesterday when we were talking about it live, how this candle yesterday went from a big Marubozu candle to leaving a nice wick behind too. So this is like one of those names where it can, look at this, it can flip around in a snap of your fingers very quickly. So you're going to want to be careful with a name like this, especially with how spready these contracts could be. You saw these in real time get down to 220. Like I said, now I'm back at entry essentially. But they wick down about 13% very quickly. So you're seeing a lot of volatility here, especially around that key psychological level of 500. You're going to see a lot more volume on that chain typically than the other chains around that name. Sorry, around that strike. Right now you got about 1,000 volume on this chain. Open interest is about 6,500. So there's some activity on the chain. It's nothing crazy, but enough to support my thesis here. SPY just grinding down after tapping that and technically making a new all-time high on the day so far. Looking a tiny bit bearish here unless we can get out of dodge here. And that's mainly contributed by, or I should say mainly attributed by, the Qs here falling quite a bit. You could more than likely mark that up to, yep, NVIDIA rejecting that 180 area. Like I said, it's going to be some level of supply. So expect some level of a resistance up here on NVIDIA, leaning more bearish. Now, I do think we bull push up and more than likely get above 180 as a close on the day for NVIDIA. But I do think you're going to be met with a lot of resistance up in that area on NVIDIA. So you do want to keep that in mind if you are a bull on NVIDIA. Meta kind of rounding out here, very wide price action for such a small range here on Meta. Starting to round out here and starting to look like we're getting a little bit of a cuppy look here, which is good for Meta. Google giving up some gains from the endless rally it's kind of been on yesterday. Left not necessarily a doji candle, but some level of an indecision candle, we'll call it. And more than likely going to head back down to this mid 235 area. Wouldn't shock me. And Apple's basically on its last nerves. I said yesterday you want to keep an eye on those two LOIs right here, which I guess I missed my long entry here on Apple. So watch this area if it backtests. 227.11, 226.87. Even where it just wicked here, this is the 5-minute chart, so let's go to the 1 minute. Down in this area here, even 227.50 could be a decent area for a long on Apple as well. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that. Don't forget, guys, if there's any stocks you want me to pull up, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll take a look. I'm actually going to keep Apple on watch here too, because I do believe if we get a little bit lower here, I'm going to take that long entry on Apple. And I talked about how much I don't like Apple yesterday. But you know, I will trade it. All right, we're getting a little bit of a move here on Microsoft. Back over basically my trigger point here, that 499.10 area. Got about 7 to 8% gain on those contracts thus far. We'll see what happens there. I might miss Apple on this trade. If it rejects here and comes back down, I'm going to take it. I'm going to actually put an alert here. We'll put an alert here. So we're going to watch Apple at 227.69. That's going to be the area I'm going to watch for a potential long on Apple today. I think if we backtest that, I think Apple could have some legs today. Maybe up to like the 230 area. So it'll be pretty good to see if we get that move on Apple. So we will see. All right, Microsoft still about 8% gain here. Nothing too crazy. I'm just stalking Apple in case we get a quick move down where I can take advantage of that. And we'll go from there. It might just push here right up the gate too because Qs are trying to round out a bit. But we are leaving a bit of a wick near this pre-market high as well. So I'm not going to rush the entry, but I will keep an eye on those 230 calls. Kind of go from there. Right now, those 230 calls are trading about 80 cents a contract. So they should be a decent entry. If we get a move down, could have a decent play there. Ideally, if I could snag them up for like 75 cents, that'd be pretty cool. So we will wait and see. Microsoft, back to my entry here. Very volatile on this chain. You got a nice like 10-cent spread here, and we're right around basically this trigger point here that I talked about, 499.10, 499.14 right now. You're going to want to see some volume come through on this MACD flip, and again, getting around 500s where I'm probably going to take my first trim off, unless I can get a nice little pop here, like literally right now. Then I might fire off a trim a little bit sooner than anticipated. Contracts right now are going for about 9% gain. We broke the red SAR here, bottomed out. We're above the POC, so we're looking for a little bit of momentum here to get a little bit of a push. Nice green candle here on the SPY, but not really. We're going all of everywhere and nowhere at the same time. That is a nice candle, so we'll see if that helps the rhetoric here. Mostly perpetuated by the Qs, as you can see on my chart here. IWM cooling off a little bit, but we should see some level of a substantiated rally to the upside, in my opinion. VIX moving up a tiny bit. That's not a great look. VVIX moving down. That's solid. NVIDIA kind of hitting a wall here a little bit. Similar setup to Microsoft. So I think we're about to break all-time highs here. Yep, there's SPY at all-time highs. Or again, yesterday's all-time high. We're getting, if we get a little bit of momentum here, there's your meta off that little rounding out area, getting a little bit of a push. Google reversing. Come on, Apple, come back down for me. I'll actually pull up that chain so we can keep an eye on it. All right, so I wanted those contracts at 75 cents. Right now they're 77. So we're going to keep an eye on this one as well. I added that to the watch list up here, and I have an alert set, so Apple will let me know right around. Actually, I should move that up a little bit. Here we go. I'll move it a few shekels above the POC. That's where I probably want to scoop up an entry on Apple. Which it should come back down. The 1 minute, it's got to cool a little bit. So it should come back down, kind of fart around here, and then kind of grind up for the rest of the day, especially off of yesterday's daily candle. We should get some level of a mean reversion here, assuming that 227.50 area in general holds. So assuming basically where this low is here. So you have pretty tight risk to reward here if that holds. But I do expect to come back here, sweep this area one more time before getting a move. That allows our short-term chart here to reset a bit and build a little bit more momentum for the upside. All right, Microsoft right now, it's basically got to go or it's dead. So we still got about an 8-9% gain here. Clearly, you're leaving these 3 wicks here. So right around this 499.50 area, continuously rejecting. So if we don't see some momentum here, it's more than likely going to reject back down. So I need it in the next minute or two. Otherwise, it's going to reject back down. In fact, I'm going to put a stop loss on just to be safe. Because it's risky here. If it holds it together, it's good. Okay, those Apple contracts are under where I want them to be, which is nice. They're cheaper than I want them to be, but I need Apple here. I'm going to drag this up again. I'll put Apple up here so I can click between them easier. These contracts are cheaper than I want them, but I want it to come down a little bit more. So looking how these contracts are moving then, if I can get in anywhere between 65 to 70 cents, I'd be pretty happy. Watch for this break here on Microsoft. Here we go. All right, now's our time. Now we're going to trim some. And it all works out after all. Always take profit on a little bit of an IV pump, a little bit of a push here. Now's our time to take some profit. That's 14% there on Microsoft. You guys see how I managed the risk there? Managed how I was being honest with myself. That's a decent resistance point. Very near term. Building out a very tiny little inverse head and shouldery kind of look. And then, boom, broke to the upside here. We need follow through, right? It's not out of the woods, but that's why I'm taking some profit now, where I can realize some, still keep a stop loss on. Now I'm not losing any money no matter what. I'm going to make a gain. I've already made a gain, and I can make more gains right now, which is a win-win. Right now we're at $3 a contract on Microsoft. Got a 297, 310 spread, so pretty decent spread on these. We're now in the money. Beautiful. Which I'll probably take some off. We'll see how we react at VWAP. That's like golden line there. A lot of traders like to use VWAP. I don't. But a lot of people will use VWAP. Let's look at it without extended hours, get kind of an idea here. Yeah, basically mid 500s, definitely where I want to take more profit. You got the 200 MA here, period of consolidation from yesterday's close there as well, and the POC. Make sure you keep that stop on, though. You can see how volatile this is, right? We're not going to lie to ourselves. This could shoot back down to the downside here. So you want to manage that risk because we could get stopped right now, and you'd rather make money than lose it. And this is why I said at the beginning of the show, where I think day trading actually has an advantage over swing trading right now, because you're making your money, you're getting out, and you're back to cash again, right? So you're not having this overnight exposure, which is typically a good thing. You want overnight exposure because that's where the biggest gains are made and lost. The biggest gains are made and lost. The biggest gains are made, but it's also where the biggest losses can be as well. But that overnight session, in a period like this where things are cautiously bullish, a lot of the Mag 7 names are basically walking on eggshells very tentatively. You want to be more cautious than aggressive. And for a lot of people who trade, they can't really manage their emotions. So it's more important to focus on very, very short-term things where you can look at very defined risk. And in this case, make a 14% gain. How many of you wait so long to make a 14% gain on equity? I know I do, right? Now, different kettle of fish completely, but that's why you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You take well-calculated trades where it makes sense, and where the risk-reward makes sense, and you're patient, and that's what matters. Guys, I will ask you one last time, because I asked you twice a stream, do me a favor if you haven't already, interact with the stream wherever you are on any social media platform. I greatly appreciate all 100 and something of you tuning in. So whether you're on X, YouTube, Instagram, anything else, do me a favor, like the stream, drop a comment, say hey in the chat. If you have any questions or any stocks you want me to look at, we're going to do ticker takedown in a little bit. So we're going to go over that. I'm already talking about Open. I know a lot of people have questions about Open, so we're going to look at Open. If you have any other stocks you want to fire them in the chat, we'll take a peek like we did yesterday. We looked at Jack in the Box and eBay, which if you missed that, there's videos on my YouTube channel, which you can go watch. So you don't have to watch the whole show. And while you're there, if you subscribe, once we get to 500 subscribers on that YouTube channel, we're going to do this show every single day. So if you like the content here and you want to see more of it, and if you just want to throw a little support my way, please pop over to that YouTube channel and hit subscribe. Thank you for your support. All right, back into it. Apple getting that push, so I might have missed my long here. Unfortunately, the low on those contracts, where if I just took the stab at that 72-ish area, I would have been pretty happy. Because I said I wanted at least 75 cents for an entry, and now we're up at 92. So if you took that trade, God bless, enjoy it. If it comes back down, we'll look at it again. I still think this 1 minute's a little hot where I don't want to take the stab just yet. But if we come back down and we reaffirm this area as an area of support, let's the 1 minute cool. That's basically all the 5 minute cool, 3 minute cool, because it's a little too hot for me to take a day trade off of this. So we're going to wait and see. Microsoft still having a hard time around that 500. Make sure you're managing a stop on this one. It will turn south and can turn south very quickly here if the bulls don't step in. With that being said, breaking over that 550-ish area with momentum will push this name back to the high of the day. I'm very confident of that. For context, that gives you basically straight to intrinsic value. If we get to the high of day on these contracts where we opened was 475. So fantastic risk to reward on this name, especially if you already took profit. You've got a managed stop on. You're looking at what could be a 100% return if the bulls step in. If they don't, hey, guess what? You didn't lose any money because you put a stop on. Smart cookie. All right, Toby says Riot. We'll take a look at Riot later. If you don't know, guys, two things about me that I hate trading typically. It's cryptocurrency stocks and it's China names. Hate them. I do make money on them sometimes. I just hate trading them. So we can take a look at Riot, Toby. Of course we can. We'll do that in just a little bit. SPY has officially made a new all-time high, 655.13. This was kind of the move I wanted to see yesterday. Unfortunately, we never got that follow-through. But I was waiting to see SPY break into the 655, 656-ish area. And now we're getting it right now, so that's good to see. The Q still lagging behind, and most of this gain is perpetuated by IWM, your small caps, as I said at the beginning of the program, on higher volume here, starting to push. Again, you have the legs all the way to 242.39, so we'll keep an eye on that together. Watch this localized high of 239.68, so you got about another dollar here or so. Breaking that, you're more than likely going to melt up about $2 real quick. So watch that if you're interested in IWM or you have exposure to small cap stocks like me. It's something you want to keep in the back of your head. All right, Microsoft wicked that VWAP, shot back down, now getting a nice little bar here. Those contracts are now 310, getting a little bit of IV expansion on these, which is nice. So we'll see if we can break here or not. What's that? 310. 315. I'm going to shave a few off here just to de-risk. That's a 24% gain. 24% gain you made by watching me for free. All right, managed to stop here. I'm going to let these probably run until the high. Breaking 50. So this is why I took a trim here. Breaking 550 is going to be an area of resistance here. Basically exactly where we are. 550, 559. This is where it's kind of a sticking point for Microsoft. So definitely consider a trim here. Move your stops up if you're in a smaller account. But right here, you got 24%. Don't be greedy. Nice solid gain. Very easy, light work. Nothing too crazy there. Those Apple contracts are at 90 cents. Let's see if we're going to come back down at all. I think Apple has the ability to push to 230 today. I just think it needs to come down and build some level of more of a base or a double, kind of like an intraday double bottom down here. Get some bearishness to come through. Let the 1 minute go bearish. Let the 2 go bearish. Let the 3. Let all of these short-term time frames, 1, 2, 3, 5, all flip bearish. Scare a few people out, and then it's going to push. So that's my bigger picture here. And again, my entry I'm looking for is right around this 227.80 area on Apple. Now, it could just grind up and trend all the way up to 230 today. That's a realistic possibility. But for the risk reward to make a lot of sense for me, I need to see it come down to this 227.80, 227.50 area, build some level of a base, and then continue to the upside. So we'll see if that is a realistic possibility. As said before, Microsoft rejecting that 550 area, and you can see why I took a trim now. We're de-risking a little bit. And those Apple contracts are now at $1. Gosh darn it. Oh well. Picked the wrong mega cap. Man, IWM is a machine right now. I'm going to take one moment to look at my small cap portfolio, small mid cap portfolio. Yeah, that's about right. My small mid cap portfolio is up about 3% today. Nice. Very, very nice. Oof. Yeah, today might be a day to take some profits on some small caps. Might be a good day to do that. Now we could, like I said, we could push higher, especially if we tap this area. If you're long small caps, if we tap this 242.39, you're probably going to want to realize some gains if that comes, for sure. Either move a stop up, be a little bit more defensive, whatever it may be. But it is going to be a really good sign if we break over this 239.68. You're more than likely going to get the rest of that upside even today, especially off the back of CPI. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Let's roll into the ticker takedown. So if you guys have any tickers you want to drop in the chat, feel free to do so. Toby has already requested Riot, so we'll take a peek at that. But a name I want to take a look at is Open. So let's look at the daily here. All right, guys, this is Open, and obviously overnight, big move, and currently as the market's open, we're up about 55% on Open. Just a short little while ago, this stock was 50 cents, believe it or not, and it is on a moon trip right now. Now, this is a pure definition of riding your EMAs. So if you use EMAs to trade with, you've been riding the 8, the 13, and the 21 all the way up. Nice little gap and a push here off of some news in regards to the new CEO appointment. And that typically, when you get a C-suite change, if the market likes it, you get a reaction like this. And it's a pretty solid reaction. Now, if you're not familiar with Open, I'm sure a lot of you are, but this is a mortgage company that's trying to do like an e-commerce platform that helps with residential real estate transactions. I'm just reading off here to summarize. But they're essentially building a technology platform for real estate that offers buyers and sellers basically like a more of a hands-on, on-demand experience, I guess. So that's kind of like the backstory behind Open or what their business is. Now, this company is currently trading at a $7 billion market cap. You're seeing a lot of hype around it, and it's a fairly big company to be moving this much, all things considered. Now, obviously at 50 cents, much smaller company, but fairly big company to be moving this much. Now, all these levels I have mapped out here for you are what you should consider if you are long on Open. Not to be confused with this strong parabolic move to the upside here. You may want to, if you're long on Open, at least move up stops or be a little bit more risk managed, because this is a hard move and you don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth and lose a lot of potential money you could have made on this name, especially in such a short period of time. Especially if you're an options trader, the IV on these contracts is hot. Your implied volatility right now is 176%. And your IV percentile is 85%. So that means only 15% of the time in the last rolling 52 weeks was IV lower on this name. So if you don't know what that means, if you're buying to open options, so you're buying calls or you're buying puts, you are 85% of the time for the last year overpaying for those options. So be very, very mindful of that. Now, on the flip side of things, if you're a seller, so you want to sell calls or sell puts, this is a great environment to do so because you're going to gather extra premium due to that high IV. If you're a newer trader, you're trying to get caught up in the meme and everything, I would just be very cautious if you're trading options, if you don't know what you're doing, because you will overpay on these options and be very upset, even if you think it moves in your direction, right? You buy call, stock goes up, I should make money. Buy put, stock goes down, I should make money. It may not happen that way due to how high the IV is. So please make sure you understand these risks if you are taking any trades on Open in regards to options. Now, I mapped out these LOIs for you guys to see where the potential really lies on Open. And as I said before, continuously riding basically these short-term EMAs, this light blue line, the green line, and the pink line on my chart here, your 8, your 13, and your 21 EMA, essentially just riding the wave all the way up. We've got a few more LOIs that I'm keeping an eye on here. So today we actually tapped and rejected to the penny. Nice little pat on the back here for me. But we tapped and rejected that first LOI at 8:14 right here at 9:37 a.m. Came back down, back tested again. That cluster of EMAs, shot through it with a nice strong candle there on some decent volume, back tested and built a little bit of a base there for about 4 or 5 minutes. Had a nice little rally here. And now you got essentially clear skies until 1075. Now, with that being said, again, you're already up 50%. So stay realistic in your head on how realistic that is to happen necessarily today, tomorrow, etc., where it may want to come down and reaffirm this 814 level as an area of now support and no longer resistance. If I was a trader on Open near term, I would want to see this 814 area kind of hold. That allows these EMAs to catch up. It allows the chart to cool down on the short term before legging up again and getting in between this 1075, 1344 range. So be very, very mindful of that if you are interested in the risk that open presents. And you can even see, as I'm talking about it live right now, we were up at like what, 910, 925, shot down already about 50 cents, which is a very big move for this stock. So you have to be very, very careful if you don't know what you're doing on higher volume, left a wick behind. You want to be very careful. I don't hate a long here if you're holding 814, but I would want to wait for a period of consolidation around this area before getting another potential leg up. Now, this also wouldn't be a name that I'd be running to short. As long as the trend stays intact here, meaning we're above all these EMAs, I wouldn't necessarily look to short this name. You've got a lot of retail involvement, a lot of potential. You just continuously squeeze and gamma ramp over and over and over and over as new news or anything comes out that excites retail. I will say, though, it will be a little bit harder to move this name as time goes on because the market cap theoretically will get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that short squeeze to what some people are like, oh, it's going to go to 90. Highly unrealistic. I'm seeing some of the same rhetoric what we saw where GameStop was going to go to 500 million or whatever ridiculous price. Be realistic. I'm not trying to stop you out of your goals or anything like that, but understand that this move here, let's just take a quick, we'll even go realistically from 180 to now. That's a 400% gain between 180 to today's price. It's a very large gain for any stock. To put that in perspective, that's like looking at Nvidia right now at roughly $200 and saying Nvidia is now 1,000, right? That's a big move, or 800, whatever it is. Either way, that's a really big move, right? So you want to, it's a very easy to get caught up with cheaper dollar stocks and how much they're moving percentage-wise. So you want to at least level yourself and ground yourself that it doesn't necessarily mean this is a bad option, but that doesn't mean you should be riskless. Now, if you've already longed this stock and you want to know, like, okay, so you said I should maybe consider being a little defensive or at least not getting too hype on it, where should I realistically set my expectations? Well, like I said, as long as we're holding this trend here, you can use these EMAs. Very simple. Some stocks just ride the EMAs very cleanly, very simply. This is one of those names where it's going to ride the 8, 13, and 21. You could leave a trailing stop underneath your 21 EMA and just let it go. I think what we're going to see near term is a consolidation around 814, might even come under it a little bit, allowing the short-term trend to catch up before trying to get another leg up again. So especially if you're buying options right now, you're more than likely going to have a bad time unless you're on the sell side of things, unless we see strong volume just take over. You break the high a day with really, really, really strong volume and continue moving. But as it sits right now, I would lean towards being a little bit more defensive on open. Again, not bearish. What I like to do on this channel in general is focus on where risk should be on and risk should be off, not necessarily if things are bullish or bearish. As I've alluded to here, the trend here is bullish, but it's a matter of being a little bit more risk off and being a little bit careful here, allowing things to cool before getting another stab at it. So if you weren't long yesterday and you want to get long today, maybe just wait a day or two. And you probably thank yourself, you get a little bit of a better entry, allow this move to cool off. And hey, if you miss it, guess what? Money you missed is fine, right? But you didn't lose it. You didn't make a dumb decision. So let things cool off. And I think there is still opportunity here on open if you're patient with managed risk, allowing time for this to cool off after it doubled overnight, right? Or, you know, it not doubled, but went up 50% overnight. That's a really big move. That's got to cool. That's got to relax a little bit before there is another leg, at least in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on open. Hopefully that helps you guys out. All right, any of you in the chat, I'm just curious, is anyone long open? And if you care to share, where did you open your long? Where did you open your open? I was contemplating getting long around here at like 231, and then this big green candle happened on 814. I went, no thanks, and then I missed out. So it happens. But if you're long at open, I'm curious to see your guys' thoughts. Oh, hell yeah. Go back to Microsoft, ladies and germs. Let's take another trim on this boy. We're actually getting a little wiki here too, so it's actually a good time to take a trim. Actually, you know what I'll do? I will go to runners here at 41%. Hell yeah. See, isn't that the best thing? I can go about my business and do something else, especially when a stop loss is on, and be like, hey, this still looks pretty good. If it breaks this area, it's probably going to go up. And I can just go about my business, do something else, and I pop back and like, oh, cool, it's like a little Christmas present. Money. Great. It's a nice little gain there. I'm now on runners on Microsoft, so I'm very light. Do with that information what you will, but I'm very light now on Microsoft in a runner size position, locking in that 41% gain. What a beaut. What a beaut. We're also in the money, so that gives us a little bit more freedom to relax a bit in terms of risk, which I like quite a bit. Sorry, I'm just updating my trade journal. There we go. Alrighty. Apple, nice little push there. SPY, did we hit 266? Yeah, 256. That's what I wanted to see yesterday. You were 1 day late. This is a bit, I said low 656 yesterday, and not that any of you are going to rewind the stream, but that's what I was looking for yesterday. Low 656 area. This is the push that I wanted yesterday, so delayed, but hey, whatever. Q's kind of double topping on the day, and technically made a new all-time high, but not by much. That's interesting. And IWM 68, about 50 points shy of that weekly high. Oops, trying to go back to my deal. Or was that last week's? Sorry, that's last week's. So last week's high, about 50 cents shy there. That's going to be a big trigger point. We break that, we more than likely going to mark up to that 242.39. So that's a big point to keep an eye on. See the VIX. Interesting to see. Volatility is actually, it's down, right? But volatility actually is kind of holding steady. In fact, from the open, you see the VIX here dropped to 1472, and we've actually been grinding up. So remember, guys, when we talk about volatility on the program, volatility is the measure, or is the spread between SPX contracts, right? It's where the bid and the ask are, how wide that spread is. So we're seeing some volatility come through. So we're seeing the VIX rise as SPY, the market, goes up as well. This is interesting, especially considering as a whole, VVIX is going down. So this is actually a really, really fascinating scenario that's rare. What's rare about it is that VVIX is going down. So that's saying the volatility of volatility is dropping. So how volatile the VIX is coming down. Meanwhile, volatility is going up. So this theory would substantiate or would support the thought process that volatility would theoretically continue on its trend to the upside today. I mean, technically gap down, but has been continuously moving up since then, while VVIX is going down, which says that volatility should climb throughout the day, while the volatility of volatility continues to drop. This is interesting because this is one of those days where we could see volatility slowly grind to the upside while the market pushes to the upside. And that can tend to lead for a very bad time for some people. So you're going to want to be a little extra careful today, because it's looking like we're getting volatility expansion with the market going up. All right, I'm going to take a quarter runners off here. Remember, my goal on Microsoft is to get back to open. That's 47%, not much more, but I'll take it. We'll take it. I'll leave the rest to see if we get back to open and push pre-market high. Might have missed the boat on Apple, like I said, which will be fine. It's okay. It's okay. Can't catch them all. It's not like Pokemon. Strange Maker says, IONQ looking good, 45 plus to me. Thoughts? Take a peek at that in just a moment. And guys, you have any other tickers, drop them in the chat now, because we're going to start rounding out the program here in a moment. After we talk about Riot and IONQ, probably take one or two names if you have them. And then we're going to probably set you guys free for the day. NVIDIA pushing lower right now. around that 177.50 strike at low a day right now. Make sure you manage a stop on Microsoft. It's hot, and also tech is a little shaky right now. If you're in a smaller account, maybe consider a stop more in the money just to protect your gains. Perhaps $3.50. Do whatever you like. I'm just saying, maybe consider that. Meta shot back down after rounding out. Google kind of consolidating here. I'm just taking a quick peek around. Tesla, nice little rally here on the day. Right, remember, until it's above like 360, I'm not necessarily bullish on Tesla. We're getting close, but you can even see here on the daily chart in the last few days here how that 360 area, your high 350s, your low 360s, is an area in which Tesla has a very hard time getting through. It's got to pull like a strong like FU candle here to the upside, or this one. I'm telling you, if it gets a red one the other way, I will publicly short it on this program, and it's going to go down pretty hard. It's on shaky footing. I'm not bearish on it yet, but it is on shaky footing. How's Amazon today? I find Amazon very boring to trade. Does anyone else find Amazon boring to trade? I find myself like not very interested. Ooh, I forgot. I just had an alert fire off for Jack in the Box. We talked about it yesterday on the program. The low of the day. Let's check this out. So we talked about it yesterday and where I would consider a stab on Jack in the Box. I set two alerts here for myself. One at 1776, the other one at 1696. So we triggered one of my alerts here where I may want to consider a stab. Let's see how this updates my risk to reward here. Entry price of 17. Whoops. And again, we're risking that low or that localized low here. Let's see how that changes my risk to reward ratio. 3-1. Not bad. But if I get that 1696, how does that change? See, that's much better. See, it's crazy how just another, in this case, another dollar, right, gives you a, look at that, almost 9-1 risk to reward. You're only risking a 2% drawdown for a 24% upside just getting back to this localized high. So this is something I'm very interested in. I want to wait another 50 cents or so because I'm only risking literally this low, a few cents below that. It's a very, very, very tight risk to reward trade. And this is very interesting to me if we can go a little bit lower. Now, we just broke the green SAR on the daily. Your MACD's flipping over, and you've got bear momentum. So I'm pretty confident we're going to come back down. Now, if we come back down and we bounce here, you're going to lock in almost a quad bottom on the daily. One here, maybe even 5 taps, 6 taps. 1 tap, 2 tap, 3 tap. I'll call this 4 taps. 5 taps, 6 taps. Basically, the 1650 area. So we come down there again. That's 7 taps. Now, if that breaks, it's bad. Very bad. That's why we'd have a stop on. Very solid risk to reward. It's clearly in a bear trend. It's clearly bearish. But these are the kind of trades I love getting in on because you have such a small, and look at this trade. I'm only risking 46 cents per share where I could make $4 per share. That's fantastic. So those are trades I'll take 10 out of 10 times because it's definitely worth it. And especially on a name with a good brand and a good product, regardless of their issues, those are where I want to take those kinds of stabs. So definitely keep this one. Set alerts if you like the idea too. My next alert is at 1696. So that's going to be the area in which I'm going to start to consider potentially along. So if you like that idea, maybe jot that down. Negum drops UNH. So we'll take a peek at, let's do Riot. Let's do IONQ. And let's do UNH. Shows you how long I've how infrequently I touch Riot. Last time I had LOIs of this one was up at 1850 and $19. So when did I touch this last? Probably around here, 2023. More than likely, this is where the last time I touched Riot. Let's see. Okay. It's interesting. Definitely interesting. All right, so this is Riot, and we're going to take a quick peek here. Clearly, it's been on a little bit of a hot streak here on the daily. You have nice volume here the last few days and kind of pushing up pretty hard here. Now, obviously, if you don't know what Riot is, Bitcoin mining company, right? Digital Bitcoin mining, digital infrastructure company, crypto company, right? Got a little bit of a push up here, and obviously this is going to react to the value of cryptocurrency because part of how it makes its business is in regards to cryptocurrency. So as long as crypto is doing well, a company like this theoretically will also do well, as for any crypto company that's on the stock market. Now, we've had a lot of volume here in the last few days, and actually you can look down here at my volume. Ever since like this low here, volume's been kind of low and then has been tapering to the upside as we push back up and filled this little gap here off of earnings. As we push back up here, I actually don't hate this name, but I would wait for it to back test at least 15 bucks. Right around this area, obviously it was a period of liquidity here that we failed on earnings, came back down, pushed above it with a nice break here. This is one of those setups where I'd like for it to come back down, bounce, and go. You've got the 8 EMA here currently trading at 1482. So that's going to support my thesis here. If we get some sort of short-term reversal, and I'm saying very short-term, few days, getting back to roughly that $15 area, that's going to allow your EMAs to catch up a little bit. And continue a move to the upside here. You also broke your red SAR here on the weekly, which is a very, very good sign for overall trend. Now, like I just said, I would like to see some level of backtest there before getting to in the weeds. But this is overall bullish here on the weekly. But what I like the most, looking at this very objectively, and I put it out there, I don't like trading crypto stocks. However, I can't deny when a stock looks pretty solid. And this price action looks pretty solid. You do have a little bit of a double bottom here, and this is on the month. You got a little bit of a double bottom going on here, a little bit of a W for Wumbo. And you're above that 15 area here, which as you can see on my chart here, if you just have the crosshairs here, it's an area of decent liquidity between 1450 and 15. Getting above that on the month is actually a really big push here. The other thing I want you to notice here, look at the VMA. So that's your volume moving average down here, slowly ticking up and up and up and up and up as you build out some level of a base here. So as we build those bases and volume ticks up, this is supporting the thesis of, or at least the idea of, some level of accumulation. People are buying Riot here longer term and waiting for a push to the upside. Now, this is a name that can move very quickly, especially with crypto, as I just alluded to. But personally, what I would look for in this name, a backtest to around $15 or so before grabbing an entry, at which point in time, this could have a very explosive move. You're above all your short-term EMAs on the monthly and above all your long-terms with the exception of the 200 MA on the month, which is a big break to have in the last like 2 to 3 months. You can even see in the last 2 months, you kind of fluttered around there and didn't really get that follow-through. But on this month, you confirmed to break above it. So within this month, retesting that 15, tapping it. So we're talking about that on the daily or the weekly, retesting this 15-ish area, 1450 at the worst, tapping it and going to the upside is what I'd look for a prime entry point on this name. It will allow it to cool off just a little bit. It'll allow people to sucker in some shorts, etc., to cool it off just a bit. And as long as Bitcoin is performing, this is a name I like quite a bit here from a risk reward standpoint. If you want to be very careful, you could slap a stop on in the low 13s, so the bottom of this range, 1322-ish, or if you want to give it a little bit more rope at like 13 bucks, assuming about a $14, $15 entry. Now, this is a name that can move very quickly. If you know these crypto names, you can move up very, very quickly. You can move 50% within a month very suddenly, right? This is a name that just a few years ago, now granted this was during like COVID and whatnot, got all the way up to 70 bucks. Will that happen again? We'll see. But what I'd be looking for is at least around $20, $21. So if we can hold that $15 area, as long as volume's there, this could be a very solid setup for a momentum play. Very similar to how open is structured. As long as you're riding the wave of momentum here and continue to ride the wave of momentum for your short-term EMAs, you're more than likely continue to the upside. I just think it needs a little bit of a cool off so I can get more of a prime entry on this name before considering a long on Riot. What do you think, Toby? Toby says, yup, I'm also waiting for a 15-ish reset. Yeah, that's kind of what this is looking like. It's not bad. does need to come down, I think, a little bit more. That'll give you a better risk to reward. Now, it could just keep going, right? But I think that'd be the best case scenario. What I would want to look for a little bit more is getting that retest on lower volume. So coming down and on the daily and on the weekly, if it's on lower volume, depending on how long it takes to get there, that'd be ideal. The only thing that could muddy the waters on this one, again, is the fact that we have FOMC next week. We also have Vixpiration and OPEX. So that can kind of muddy the waters just a little bit. So few things to consider there. But overall, if you're patient, I think it could offer a good return. All right, my Microsofts are at $4. $4 a contract. Not too bad. Oh, man, we're on the 5-minute SAR here. This could push. We're going to let my runners run. We'll see what happens. We'll come back to that. Let the runners run. IO and Q. So this is one I used to know about. I need a refresher. Oh, quantum computing. Ugh. I feel weird about quantum computing. It's sure we'll make money one day, but I feel like I need to be more educated on this company in particular before having an opinion on it, to be honest with you. I've got a bad taste in my mouth about this company due to, how do I say this as cleanly as I can? I'm aware of someone who is financially, I'm aware of a large influencer who is financially benefiting about publicly talking about this name quite a bit, and that skeeves me out because I don't necessarily find this person intelligent. And I'm not talking about like a CNBC person or anything like that. And typically when I see people on like influencers like myself talking about a name and I know that they're paid for it, I immediately want nothing to do with it. You can even see some people who are on X that will get paid, and it's in their disclaimer. You can see this clear as day. They'll take a $200 payment to talk about a stock, and it's a weird penny stock or whatever. I immediately get, as the popular girls say, the ick, and I don't want to trade them at all. I don't want to know about them. I don't really care. With that being said, looking at this from a purely technical basis on the daily here, you got a little bit of like an inverse head and shouldery kind of look. And a bigger kind of head and shouldery kind of look here. I think if I was to trade this name, I would look to go long after it breaks basically this, where my crosshairs are here, around this 49, 42 area. So I'd be intentionally late to this party because if that breaks, it's more than likely going to get a hard push to the upside. So I would, if I wanted to take a stab on this name, I'd actually wait for that. I don't like, I mean, you are consolidating here, but I don't like how volume's tapering off. Now it's consolidation, so there's an argument both ways on that. It's building a base. That's typically a bullishing before a move. You've tapped the 200 essentially on this wick. You wicked it right back up. That's typically a much better move. I would lean bullish before bearish on this name, but I would personally wait until over like this $49, $48 area before getting in intentionally, because I would rather be late to this party, because getting in too early actually might be a bad move on this one, where it could sour. So depending on your outlook, my opinion would change. But for me personally, that's what I would look for. Now, speaking about this company individually, I will not invest in this company. I will not trade. Typically, I won't trade companies that people pump like that unless I'm going against what they're doing. So I'm publicly shorting them. And even then, I don't alert that in the Discord or whatever. I don't talk about it because I don't need to cause drama or anything. So personally, I would stay away from this name. I get, again, as the popular girls say, the ick about people who are on social media that are paid by people to directly promote a stock. People have different opinions on that. I just don't like that. And the other reason why I don't like that is kind of because of the industry they're in. It's quantum computing. Not to say that it can't be worth something someday, because I think there is legs, obviously, in quantum computing in the future. but that future is not today. So I've got mixed feelings about this one. It wouldn't, here, I'll leave you with this. It wouldn't shock me if we saw IO and Q come out with an offering very soon. That's what I'll leave you with. I'll say that. Do with that information what you will. Cool. All right, that's IO and Q. We almost got to my price target here on Microsoft. Contracts got up to 436. It's looking hot, though. I think I'm going to call it here on Microsoft and take the W. I'm going to wait a minute. We'll wait one more minute. We'll see if the AMA breaks. I'll call it. We'll get out of the way here. We'll wait and see. So be ready if you are still long Microsoft. Start to consider an exit around here. I am considering it as I'm live. So we'll wait and see. You know what I'll do? I'll just reduce my size. So I'll go down to I'll go down to like very few. All right. I'm down to my last batch. So I'm going to trim out. That's a 63% gain. And also, I'm going to move my stop loss to 350. That way I can lock in any gains. So there's still a chance that this pushes here and pushes to pre-market high. It's just looking, and again, we're trading a 1 DTE here, so risk changes depending on time of contract and where you are in the strike. We're in the money, so that de-risks us a bit. These contracts do expire tomorrow. And right now you got about $2 of intrinsic value. Contracts are trading 430, so I have about $2 of extrinsic value. So I kind of want to lock in that gain while I have that, while it's here, versus risk running, losing that gain potentially. So we'll lock that in for a nice 63% gain. And it's not looking like I'm getting my Apple set up, which is fine. This is probably going to push here in a second. Probably, but that's okay. That's okay. How's the market? Ooh. Market going to try for another one. New all-time high on the market here. Q's not supporting that. And IWM still fluttering around just shy of last week's high. Interesting. How's our volatility? VIX is now moving down a little bit. And VVIX is stable. That's interesting. So we'll see if volatility continues to, or reverses the trend down versus to the upside where it had been kind of grinding since the open back up. NVIDIA trying to round out the bottom here. Meta, ugly inverse head and shoulders, which isn't really a thing here. But price action, pop up, rejection, price action. So it's possible you could get a downside move here. It's not like a clean textbook head and shoulder or anything, but something that you just want to look at in terms of candles. Google just sitting near the lows. Open sitting near the highs. Where's Tesla? Man, Tesla is a beast. Up to 360 today. Up 3%. 250. I'm sorry, 359.28. Remember that 260 area is where I want to be long on Tesla if it breaks it. What is that high there? 267.71 is that high from all the way back in May. So we'll see how that reacts there. That would basically be, is that 42 week or 52 week high? No, it wouldn't be. That's an area of decent liquidity. So keep an eye on that. That could be a decent short. Don't really want to step in front of a freight train, especially like Tesla. And today, like I said, I want to be cautiously bullish overall, but as an intraday trade, that could be a point that you could watch for a short. Potentially. That's going to be a decent resistance point. But we may come back to that, especially if I'm still live. We'll see. Amazon kind of doing not much. Alrighty. Ooh, 480. We have broken opens price. I wanted the pre-market high, which is 503.88, and that will mark a complete trade for me. But I don't know if I want to be greedy, and I might just take the exit here. I think I'm going to take the W, guys. I think we're just going to take the win here. I'm going to walk on it here. That ended up being an 86% gain. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Time will tell if that was a good decision, but I'm pretty sure it is. This is a very hot move. Should get some period of cooldown, probably come back to 501-ish before potentially going higher. Good time to realize gains. Good time. All right. Let's roll into the last one. We got UNH as requested by Negum. Let me take a peek here before we get into it. Interesting. Yeah, I saw it got some bullishness recently. What a crazy, what crazy moves for a $300 billion company. Like, isn't that absurd? Crazy. Formulating my opinion, so give me a second here. I'm taking time to A, pick my words, and B, also pick what I think. And I don't like having dead air on my show. I like to talk. That's part of one of the best features of my show is I don't shut up for about an hour and a half. All right, this is UNH. Looking here at UNH, obviously a big name that a lot of people have paid attention to ever since its fall from grace all the way up near whatever it was, $600. Gap down, traded lower, another gap down, traded lower, another gap down, popped back up, found a nice consolidation point around that $300 level before grinding a bit lower off of the back of earnings and getting a little bit of a reversal, gap back up, and now pushing higher once again. Now officially in the gap from the fall from mid-May. So on this chart, as it sits right now, I would be leaning more bullish than bearish. Now that comes with a catalyst of this being a very news-sensitive name right now due to everything surrounding, not even political effects with healthcare, but this company in general. So any kind of news obviously can help or hurt this name, as with any stock. But I think this stock in particular is very sensitive to the news, especially due to its evaluation at this time. With that being said, from a purely technical basis right now, it is leaning more bullish. What I would prefer to see is it actually kind of consolidate around this 342 area and build this as a new support or back test 324.64 first. Now, with that being said, once we're in the gap here, if volume takes over, which if we zoom in here, these are daily candles, the last 2 days, there hasn't really been a lot of volume comparative to the day prior where we broke into that gap on high volume. That's typically a very good sign. The lower volume here is a little bit concerning that it will kind of have to sit here just for a little bit before potentially filling the gap at 376.84. Now, that being said, very near term, I would look for that gap to fill. And I would watch your 200 MA on the daily here before even thinking about going bearish on this name, at least, again, very near term. When I say near term, I'm talking the next month or two. As it sits right now on the weekly, it looks like it has some more legs for a little bit more of a reversal. But after it taps this 376 area that I highlighted between there and roughly around 400, which is obviously a psychological level, but where I'm going to guesstimate the 200 MA would be on the daily after a few days here, that's where I'd start to look for an area of resistance on this name. So as it sits right now, you got about, whatever that is, 15% upside here, potentially up to around 400, at least for this gap fill for sure. If the volume comes in, like I said, the volume's not really there right now in the last 2 days, so I'd want to exercise a little bit of caution. If this was a name I was already long on, I would manage a stop a little bit below the 342 area. As you can see yesterday, we wicked it and reversed it. We got down to the low of day at 341.40, so it went a little bit lower than that and then came back up And then today we didn't even touch it. We just opened higher and have held that low. Currently that low is 345.84. So we're staying above that 342 area, but if I was already long, I'd perhaps consider a stop a little bit under 340 because it's a whole number. So I'd look at like 339.90 or something, right? Something where if there is a sweep to that 340 area, again, whole numbers, psychological levels, that I wouldn't get stopped out of my position and it could get a quick reversal there if there's some level of like a stop loss rate or anything. So I would look for some level of consolidation here in general, especially if volume's low. Now, if volume stays low and we get that consolidation here, I'd want to see the MACD either come down and almost cross over or actually cross over and then do basically this price action here from the month of mid-August to basically now, where we just kind of floated around a little bit above that LOI. So I want to say above 342, but just kind of fart around here for a little bit. That would also allow this RSI to come down just a little bit. Now, I use RSI more as like a momentum indicator. So right now it's at around 78. So the bullish momentum is pretty high and it can continue to stay high, which is good. But in the event that we do have that period of consolidation, I would need to see RSI stay north of 54, which is like my bull parameter for bullish momentum. If it stays north of 54 and we get that consolidation, then I would be more than pretty confident that we would tap at least 376.84, fill the gap, complete the gap fill, and more than likely sweep the 200 MA on the daily. Looking at the weekly here, good push up on volume on the week. Obviously a big candle here, really solid move. I'd want to see how this week ends up. Today's Thursday, so we'll see how tomorrow goes. And then next week we do have a pretty volatile week. So this is a name where, because of where it's sitting, you're going to want to see the weekly candle close above 342, and you're going to want to see next week's candle defend 342, which means it closes above 342. Now, it may wick a little lower again to like that 340 area, but you do want to see that 342 close once again. That'll give you a little bit more confirmation on the bull side of things, that at least in the weekly, you've got more confirmation for a continued upside move. You also are starting to gain bull momentum here on RSI on the weekly. It's not there yet. Again, my parameter for bull momentum is 54. Right now you're at roughly 51. So it's almost there. You also broke the red SAR here on the week, consolidated for those 3 weeks before getting this break. So momentum is definitely in the bull's favor. This is not something I would short at this juncture yet. Now, me personally, I was looking to establish a long on UNH on the 200 MA monthly tap, which last time it tapped was all the way back here in 2013, and it had substantial gains since then. So I was trying to be a little greedy and wait for this 200 MA, which is also where your POC is. So big confluence point right around this 220 area. Now that's a big fall from here. Can that still happen? Sure. Like I said, this is a very news heavy stock. And I will be patient and wait for that if it does happen. Now, realistically, will that happen? I would err on the side of no, unless something catastrophic happens. This fall here was a pretty hard fall on arguably justifiable news. For that fall to happen again, or some level of an equal, like kind of hard bear momentum, you'd probably want to see something come out negative about Medicaid or Medicare, which is a realistic possibility that we see something, what I like to say is policy overhang affect UNH. So that's a unique risk to this name it could see right now, which is policy risk, that if something in the government changes, this stock could be affected, healthcare stocks in general, but especially this stock, because on the monthly, this stock still leans bearish. So near term on the daily and the weekly, it would lean bullish. On the monthly, still leans bearish. So depending on your outlook here, I would just be very careful, at least take everything I said with a grain of salt and understand the risk to reward here, where we do look like we're going to continue to push to the upside here near term, but a little longer term, the jury is still out, at least in my opinion, on UNH. What do you think, Negum? How'd I do on that Microsoft exit? Let's go. Beautiful Microsoft exit. Got out few pennies shy a high a day. What a beaut. Toby says, yes, die UNH so I can get better prices. Yeah, my trigger point, like I said, if you own the monthly here, outside of down here at 90, which would be nuts, right here, your POC is 216.28. Your 200 MA is 212.24. The amount of confluence like the amount of algos that would trade this level and everything, like this would be such a huge pivot point on the monthly. It may take a few months, like you could see here in 2013, but especially on equity, you rallied from 44 to 600. Like those are the kind of things I like waiting for. So if it happens, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. Otherwise, I'm not really interested in a snail. Like UNH is a snail. It's just going to move very slowly. Nikum says, thank you. You are welcome, my friend. Hopefully that helps you out. All right, guys, we're going to do one last zoom around the market and set you guys up for success for the rest of the day. And don't forget, if you enjoyed today's show, please interact with the stream if you haven't already. And I will be live again tomorrow at 9:15. Let's take a peek. Great exit on Microsoft. Good trade, everybody. Apple coming down a little bit. Keep an eye on that. Like I said, again, the trade isn't necessarily invalidated. I would look at just shy under 228. I like the 230 contracts. I would wait for a period of consolidation, because what I was predicting here is that we see basically the MACD to go red on every short-term time frame, and you're just getting a 5-minute flip here. Break the green star, come down and get comfy around under 228, but ideally above 227.50. 227. I mean, you could use the 200 MA as like your cut point on the 5-minute here, which is 227.42. Obviously, that will change as time goes on, but if we drop about $1 here, might have really good a good risk to reward on the rest of the day on Apple. So just keep an eye on that. I think there's good opportunity there today. SPY made a new whole number high, 657, brand new all-time highs. I'd be a little cautious. It looks like we're going to have a trend day. We don't have any other news, let me remind you. Let me just triple check before I say it. We have no more news besides the 30-year bond at 1 o'clock, so we should be pretty chill for the rest of the day. 1 o'clock may have a little bit of volatility, but we should just maintain some level of a trend here. Okay, Q's made a new all-time high. Not with a lot of confidence, but it did make it. Ooh, did we break it? It looks like we broke it. We broke it. The weekly high from IWM last week has been broken. That puts 242.39 on the board for today. So that's going to be, today could be one of those days where we see, like a 3% up day on IWM kind of thing, 2%, 3% up day. 240, again, that number for my own memory as well. 242.39 is on the board today for IWM. If we tap that, I'm a little late to the long party here. If we tap that, I might take a short just to, go counter trend off of a hard move. But it's looking like, let me check my small cap port. I'm guessing we're doing pretty good. Yeah, we're doing great. Small cap port is doing very good right now. So it's a good day to own small caps. Hopefully next Wednesday is as well. Volatility. This has to be on watch. You got to keep an eye on your VIX, because VVIX is kind of stagnant. It's moving down a little bit, but overall stagnant. And VIX gapped down and grinded up, and it's kind of holding around this whole 15 number, and it looks like it's going to try to keep pushing up as the market is grinding to new all-time highs. That is basically baking in some level of a more volatile move here on the day. So don't rest on your laurels. Be very careful. If you're not paying attention today, you might get a little bit of a surprise. And that could be baking up for the 1 o'clock. We'll see. So I'd be a little careful on that. NVIDIA right now, holding pretty solid around this 177.50 area. Meta near the low of its range. I told you guys it was not necessarily a textbook head and shoulders, but ugly price action, pop, price action, and kind of like back down. So there could be a continuation to the downside here on Meta. As I said, I'm pretty bearish on Meta, a sub 777.75 area. I lean more bearish. I'm not currently a bear, but I lean more bearish. Google right around where I want to see it today. It's cooling off. Right here is essentially where I would pin it. I wouldn't necessarily be a bull or a bear. It just needs like a day to chill, maybe another day. Right around this like 237.50. Should really end the week around there. Open made another high and rejecting. Again, be very careful on this one if you are in it. Tesla, you guys know what I think about Tesla. 360 would be on watch for me. for a potential short opportunity. And Amazon's kind of boring today. But that's what we got for you guys. Hopefully you guys made some money today. Hopefully you learned something. Negan says, wonderful. My ad was at 260. I think I should fake a profit now. Yeah, fake one. Fake a profit. Take a screenshot, add a few zeros on there, and post it on social media. Fake that profit. But hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully maybe you made a little money today, right? Whatever it may be. I hope you enjoyed the program. And don't forget, again, tomorrow I'll be live once again at 9:15. Thank you for your support. Thanks for hanging out in the chat and talking with me. The show is so much better when you guys interact. And I love interacting with you guys. And don't forget to be smart and make smart decisions today. And as always, some will say you need an edge to trade. Well, I like to look at things from a different angle, and that's always what you'll get right here on the Atomcash angle. Have a great rest of your day, guys. And don't forget, precision beats prediction every damn time. I'll see you tomorrow.
The time has passed, and that's a wrap.